Hello everyone. So welcome back to video lectures. And this video lecture covers slides from 8 to 11. And this is for chapter 3. I would assume that you have read Emma's business story already. So I'm going to just come to the case questions directly. So the case 1 says that if Emma sells 5 packages or 40 packages, what is contribution margin per unit? What is contribution margin percentage, contribution margin in total, and operating income or profit. And after that, we're going to explore the questions including if Emma wants to make a profit of 2,000, what the master revenue equal, and what if Emma wants to make a profit of 3,200, what the master revenue equal, and what is the break-even point. So these are very basic but fundamentally important questions in this chapter. I hope you practice enough to make sure you familiar with those formulas and know when to apply them. Alright, so I'm going to open the Excel file. I'm going to have a new one. So let me make some changes here to make sure you can see those things easily. So first of all, I'm going to put 5 packages. Okay. And next, I'm going to put 40 packages. Okay. The first question is asking for contribution margin per unit. So the formulas you can think about is, sorry, I think there is a typo here. So the formula you can think about is, if you go to the slide 4, the contribution margin per unit is right here. Okay, so one way you can do is you can use the contribution margin divided by number of units being sold. There is a second formula you can also apply. Actually, it's preferred. So you can use selling price per unit and subtract variable costs per unit. Okay, so I'm going to put an enter here. So contribution margin per unit actually has 2 formulas you can use. One is a contribution margin in total divided by the number of units. The second one is selling price per unit subtracts variable cost per unit. So either one of them. And in our case, I think that this second formula is much easier. Okay, so if you go to the slide 8. Okay, and let's look at slide 7. This sentence tells us that Emma is going to ask for $200. Okay, is going to ask for $200. Okay, to sell each package. So the $200 is the selling price per unit. Okay, and for every package Emma can sell, the publisher will charge for $120. So that's the variable cost per unit. Okay, actually the only one. You may see the 2,000, right? This dollars. Actually, that's a rent. Okay, the rent. This is the total fixed cost. Total fixed cost. Because regardless how many packages Emma can sell, she still has to pay 2,000 to rent a booth. Okay, regardless, even she sells none, then she has to pay 2,000. That's basically a loss for her. Okay, because you don't have any revenues, so you basically pay 2,000 and you sell none, so you're responsible for 2,000. Okay, you have a business loss. Okay, so but anyway, let's get back to the question 1. So for that one, what we can do is we can use $200 to subtract $120. Okay, so that's the $80 contribution margin per unit. For 40 packages, it's the same. It's the same. Okay. So next, we're going to look at the contribution margin percentage. Okay, for the contribution margin percentage, the formula is also, I guess, in the slide 4. So the contribution margin percentage, you have 2 formulas, and apparently the second formula is easier for us to apply in this question, in this particular case. So for contribution margin percentage, we can divide contribution margin per unit, which is the one we just determined. We can divide that by selling price per unit. we have that value, or also that's $200. So we can divide $80, okay, which is right here, by $200, then we get 40% or 0.4. And for 40 packages, it's the same, 40% or 0.4. The next one, we want to find the contribution margin. So normally that's just looking at the contribution margin total. Okay. For this one, we do have to know how many packages Emma has sold. Okay. And the number of packages being sold does matter. Okay, it does matter. So in this one, if you only sell 5 packages, then you have only 400 contribution margin in total. Okay, $400 contribution margin in total. If you can sell 40 packages, now you have 40 times 80, so which is a 3,200 contribution margin total, okay, in USD. So next one is operating income. I'm gonna put OI. So some people may like to use profit. For Emma's business, it's very simple. So I'm gonna put a profit or operating income, or you can use operating profit, either way. For this one, we have to find the fixed cost in total, okay? And in Emma's case, we're looking at 2,000 US dollars. Okay, so that's a fixed cost in total. So what we can do is we can use a contribution margin in total, which is $400, to subtract 2,000 fixed costs. So you get negative 1,600. So this is basically operating loss. Okay, operating loss. Okay. For 40 packages, in this case, we can use 3,200, the contribution margin total, to subtract 2,000 fixed cost in total. So then we have a 1,200, okay, operating profit. Okay, operating profit, and this is positive. So we have a profit here, we have a loss here. Okay, so that's the first 4 questions. So now let's go back to the slide. Okay, the slide 8 here, and we have several other questions to resolve. The first one is if Emma wants to make a profit of 2,000, what must the revenue equals? Okay, so this question is kind of tricky here. Instead of asking you how many packages Emma must sell, the question says what must revenue equal. Okay, so be careful with the this question, because it's not that trivial. Okay. The second part is you might want to find out what must revenue equal if Emma wants to make a profit of 3,200, and finally, what is the break-even point? Okay, so the break-even point, you got to be careful if it's break-even point in units or in revenue. So you may have to look at those two issues at the same time. Okay, so first let's look at if I have a target profit, what must revenue equal? Okay, so I'm going to go back to the slide 5. Okay, so slide 5 said that if you have the target operating income or target profit, and you can apply this formula to find the target revenue as well. So you have to know contribution margin percentage, which is 40%, and the fixed cost, we have 2,000. So if you know the target operating income, you can use this formula and finish the calculation to find target revenues. Okay, so I'm going to look at it here. So for this one, let's look at profit of 2,000. Okay, then I'm going to find out target revenue. Okay, this is a target profit. So let me make this a little bit wider. Okay, so that it's easy for everyone to see that. I'm going to put the target profit. Okay, and the target revenue must equal the following. Okay, so we're looking at fixed cost 2,000 plus the target profit 2,000. Okay, then the quantity divided by 0.4. Okay, 40%. Okay, then you get 10,000. Okay, so that's the target revenue. Okay, target revenue. Okay, so that this is the formula we just applied. So for the second for the second one, the target profit of I think we are looking at 3,200. It's quite similar. Okay, it's quite similar. Okay, actually it uses the same formula as the first one does. The only difference is you have different target profit. Okay, so this time you add the same fixed cost. Fixed cost is the same for target profit of 2,000 and profit of 3,200. There's no difference. Okay, so you add the fixed cost, the same number 2,000 to target profit 3,200 this time. The quantity divided by 40%. Then we're looking at 13,000 revenue. Okay, 13,000 revenue. Okay, you may wonder the number of units, right? So although it's not required, but we can still look at that, the number of units. Okay, for this one you can divide the number of the revenue amount, divide that by $200. So we're looking at 50 packages. Okay, for the target profit of 3,200, we can divide the target revenue amount by 200. So we're looking at 65 packages. Okay, so that's basically about those two things. Next one is we're looking at a break even. Okay, break even. Okay, so I'm going to look at the break even in units and break even in revenue. Okay, so so break even in units, I think we can look at the question here. So break even units is right here, fixed cost divided by contribution margin per unit. So you don't have you have zero target profit. So that's why fixed cost plus zero is fixed cost. So anything at zero is itself. So that's pretty straightforward. For this one, we can just just divide the total fixed cost 2,000 by $80 per unit. So the result is 25 packages. So Emma just needs to sell 25 packages to break even. So break even in revenue. Okay, break even in revenue. So we can apply the following formula. We can divide 2,000 by 40%. So we're looking at 5,000. Okay, the formula is right here. Okay, break even revenue, fixed cost divided by contribution margin percentage. So what I did was I divided 2,000, the fixed cost, by 40%, the contribution margin percentage. Okay, so now we have completed the case 1 questions almost here. The cost of volume profit analysis is essentially a few formulas and several measures, and I want you to make sure that you definitely understand the mathematically there are some formulas. Okay, you may want to remember. Okay, so there are two major measures using mathematical formulas. The first one is the equation method. Okay, and the equation method. So this method you can apply to find to set up operating income formula. Okay, so this is how you find operating income. Okay, you have to have a fixed cost component, and this part is basically the total variable cost, and this is the total revenues. The second one is a contribution margin method. Okay, contribution margin method, you have to know the contribution margin per unit, which is the selling price per unit subtracts variable cost per unit. Okay, then multiply the quantity by the quantity of units sold. Then this will give you total contribution margin. Then subtracts fixed costs to arrive at operating income. Okay, so those two are very fundamentally important. And the first one is more like econ formula. So if you have ever taken any economics classes, maybe this is someone you might have seen. This is one is more accounting type of method. Okay, but both of them are correct. So when you have questions, you can apply either one of them. The last method is a graphic method. Okay, so graphic method, we can look at the following graph. I think this is one you might have seen in some econ class. Okay, so basically you have a revenue line, you have a cost line, then they intersect. The intersection is break-even point. Okay, so this is a very typical thing. Okay, then basically there are two regions. Okay, so this blue one we're looking at operating income area, and this light red region indicates the operating loss area. Okay, then at a break-even point, you get a zero profit. Okay, or zero loss, either way. Okay, so this is a very important graph. It tells you a lot of information. Okay, for instance, you can also find out fixed cost here. Okay, fixed cost here. Okay, so if you look at the line passing through A to B, and this is a cost line, the cost line. Okay, I hope you still remember some contents you might have learned in accounting 221. So that's basically this 2000, the point A, that's called a y-intercept, and the y-intercept indicates the total fixed cost. Okay, then we're looking at a slope. The slope tells you variable cost per unit. Okay, the variable cost per unit, and this straight line passing through A and B, that's total cost line. We also have total revenues line passing through C to D, points C and D. Okay, and for this one you can look at this in the y-intercept, that's C, that's zero as well. When you have a zero sales, you have zero revenues. So the line, this revenue line, must pass through the origin. Okay, so this kind of issue here. So I want you to spend a little bit more time on this graph, and make sure you know how to explain that to people, and understand some of those regions, and apply that to solve some questions. The next one is sometimes we do have to deal with some tax issues, and at this time we just look at the tax rate, the flat tax rate. We're not going to get into complicated tax issues, so just flat tax rate. Let's assume that 35% or maybe 39% or 40% and so on. Sometimes it's if you have a flat tax rate, it's pretty easy to find the net income. Okay, so the net income is operating income minus the tax paid. Okay, the tax paid. So the tax paid is operating income multiplied by tax rate. Okay, so once again, we're looking at a flat tax rate. Is pretty simple model here, and don't think too much about the taxation in this class. So most of the tax issues involved in managerial accounting, actually those issues are pretty straightforward. In this case, the net income or net profit is operating income subtracts the tax paid. Okay, the tax paid is operating income times tax rate. Okay, so you can combine these two terms. You can have operating income times 1 minus tax rate. Okay, so you can also convert or transform this formula. Okay, because this formula tells you if I know the operating income and the tax rate, how to find the net income. For this one is basically the opposite. If I know the net income and the tax rate, how to find the operating income. Okay, so those two are just a reverse of each other, and we can use this idea to solve some CVP question if it involves tax rate or tax issues. Okay, so here's a question. Assuming an income tax rate of 40%, Emma wants to know the quantity of units of GMAT success packages she must sell to earn a net income of 1,920. Okay, now we're looking at a net income, not operating income. It's net profit, not operating profit. So it's a result after deducting tax paid. Okay, I want you to pay attention. So now let's look at this question. Okay, look at this question. Okay. So first of all, we start with net income. Okay. Okay. And the tax rate is 40%. Okay. So net income, that's the target net income. So the target net income is 1,920. The tax rate is 40%. So in order for us to apply the formulas we have learned in previous slides, which is I think is somewhere here, okay, you have to have operating income, but now we have net income, so we have to find the operating income, and that's you're gonna apply the formula right here. So you can find operating income by dividing net income by the quantity of 1 minus tax rate. Okay, so let me go back to the slide here. So now I'm gonna find the target operating income. Okay, so that equals the target net income, which is 1,920, the quantity divided by the quantity of 1 minus 40%, which is 0.4. So now we're looking at 3,200. Okay, so 3,200 is the target operating income, corresponding to target net income of 1,920. And from there, we can go ahead and find the question. So let's find out how many GMAT success packages she must sell to earn a target operating income of now 3,200. Okay, and the formula is right here. Okay, so we're going to look at fixed cost plus target operating income, then the quantity divided by contribution margin per unit. Okay, so let me get back to this Excel file. So now we're looking at required units. Okay, required units sold. Okay, so in this case, all the conditions remain the same. So it's still 2,000 total fixed cost. Okay, and we have 3,200 target operating income. Then the quantity divided by $80 per unit. So Emma must sell 65 packages, okay, to earn a target net income of 1,920. Okay. All right. So this is basically the video lecture covering slides from 8 to 11. I hope you enjoyed this video lecture, and please continue to watch video lectures for other slides in chapter 3. Okay, thank you.